Good afternoon. This is the time and place for the Legal and Finance Committee meeting for January 15, 2025. We'll begin with roll call and determination of quorum.
Beaverdorf. Here. Evans. Here. Maher.
Here.
Roseland.
Here.
Stroman.
Here.
All present.
Okay. Next item is adoption of the agenda.
Second.
Motion by Evans and second by Roseland to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next item is general public comment. This is a time for members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the council on any issue not on the agenda. Action will not be taken at the meeting on any issue not on the agenda, except by placement on the agenda by unanimous vote of the council members present. I don't see any speaker request forms or anyone waiting to speak, so I'm going to close general public comment and next move on to consent items 1 through 16. And open public comment on that. And again, seeing no speakers in line to speak, I'm going to close public comment on consent items 1 through 16. Next thing I'd like to have is a motion to approve the minutes of December 31 meeting. There's a motion by Evans and a second by Roseland to approve. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. Then on consent items 2 through 16. Does any council person wish to pull any items? If not, I just want to pull 12 and 13 just for one brief question on each one. So I'm going to pull 12 and 13. Then can I get a motion on? Okay, motion by Beaverdorf, second by Maher to approve items 2 through 16 except for 12 and 13. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Then I will just ask Director Beegler on item 12. This is approved resolution of intent to enter into a lease with Rapid City High School Baseball, Inc. for property located at 2819 Canyon Lake Drive. Jeff, I just wonder what field are we talking about here? What?
Hi there. Oh, there we go. That's McKeague Field,
Okay.
and that's the facility that they have leased for a number of years.
I just couldn't tell from that. I didn't drive by, but and it's just that field then, and
That is correct, just that field.
okay. Can I get a motion on 12? Motion to approve by Beaverdorf and a second by Roseland. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. Next item is number 13. I'll go back to Director Beegler. Where is this 1335 East St. James? Is that a soccer field then?
That is the soccer field that we consider it Campbell Street Soccer Field. So that's right on Campbell Street at the corner of St. James and Campbell.
Right next to the fairgrounds?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Can I get a motion on 13? Motion approved by Maher, second by Roseland. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to the end of the consent calendar, and now we'll go to non-consent items 17 through 20. I'm going to open public comment on non-consent items 17 through 20. Seeing no one waiting to speak on those items, I'm going to close public comment. And next, we're going to go to Director Biegler for item 17, introduction and first reading of ordinance number 6649, an ordinance amending Rapid City Municipal Code 2.89.060 regarding quorum for the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is an amendment to the existing ordinance. As you may or may not know, the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board is a board that is in ordinance, and when this ordinance was devised, it puts forth that it's a seven-member board, that 4 affirmative votes are required of the majority to pass an action. However, it also says that the quorum on this group is a 3-person quorum, which kind of flies in the face of having needing a 4-person affirmative to affirm any action. So what this will do is it will change the quorum minimum to 4 rather than 3, and then we'll be all set.
Any discussion from the council? Motion approved by Bieberdorf and a second by Evans. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Next item, we're going to go to the Finance Office for number 18, introduction and first reading of ordinance number 6652, an ordinance amending Municipal Code 3.16.090. And we'll go to Assistant Director Tracy Davis.
Thank you. This is to amend the CIP ordinance. Recently, you all approved $3.5 million of equipment purchases. Those were moved from the general fund budget for 2025 into the CIP. And so we are changing the requirements, allowing those payments to be made for those pieces of equipment from the CIP fund. They'll be bringing forward a new CIP policy once this has been passed.
Any discussion from the committee? Motion to approve by Bieberdorf and a second by Evans. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. For number 19, presentation by Mike Dugan, TIF Planning, to acknowledge revised draft tax increment financing policy. And we'll turn the floor over to you, sir.
Thank you very much and good afternoon. Members of staff have been working the last approximately 3 months on updating the current TIF policy. The TIF policy was last updated in 2013. What I'm going to provide is a summary of what those changes, the proposed changes, are to be made. This is a draft working copy right now, with the idea this will be up on, again, for acknowledgement on next week's City Council agenda. If there's no changes or questions or additional concerns, this would be brought forth for an ordinance amendment in February, and they would take 2 readings of the ordinance amendments that had to be changed. And on the second reading of the ordinance amendments would come through with the final copy of the policy revisions for council approval. So the first change would be the elimination of the TIF committee, and per statute, applications would be reviewed by the Planning Commission and the City Council. And so with the removal of that, individual comments from the County Commission, Equalization, and the school district, written comments will be made. And then if those written comments are made, they will be attached to the staff report that moves forward to Planning Commission and the City Council. So with the removal of that committee, there still will be opportunity for the commission, the County Commission, the County Equalization, the school district to provide comments that will be heard and reviewed by the Planning Commission and City Council. There's a provision in this proposed TIF update for infill development and grants. This would allow a portion of TIF proceeds to be used for the purchase of land for infill development. So if the applicant would have to bring forward how it would be more costly to purchase land that's kind of in the outer skirts of city limits where there's minimal infrastructure in place, over the cost of what it would be to develop a vacant property more towards the center of town where there is existing infrastructure in place. So the difference of those lot purchases could be used. So if it's $500,000 to purchase land kind of on the outer skirts of city limits with minimal infrastructure, or $800,000 to purchase property more towards the current, or more towards the center of Rapid City where there is existing infrastructure, that difference of $300,000, if the increment allows, could be TIF eligible. And that would be to promote more infill around areas where there is existing infrastructure in place. That would take a staff recommendation to move forward with that, and then it would take city council approval. And examples of what it could be used for is for projects that are for affordable housing, like a need for low-income housing, and significant economic development opportunities for the community. And then greater flexibility for the council to authorize grants for exceptional TIFs. An example of that would be put into the revised TIF policy was the Camden Heights affordable housing, which was low-income apartments of the 60% of AMI income levels. That was a grant. So we did identify the costs of that project, the TIF, the costs, and then the total cost of that project. That still will be reviewed. The city is still reviewing the monthly draws, the monthly expenditures of where those funds are going towards the project. But with the grant, they can use those funds towards any part of the project, and it's not tagged to any specific line item. But they are still tracked and monitored. But that grant was given to help that project move forward, as that was identified as a high need for the community for that project. There is revised fees proposed with this, and a max interest rate that can be charged on the TIF loans. So the application fee would move from $2,500 to $5,000 per application for requests up to $10 million in capital improvements. And then over the $10 million plus requests in capital improvements will be 0.1% of over the $10 million, with not to exceed an application fee of $15,000. The city would increase the inputted administration fee from $20,000 to $25,000. And then the county has passed a resolution for an imputed administration fee of $15,000. And then for the interest rate for TIF loans, currently in the policy, it's set at 9%. So this would fix them at whatever Wall Street Journal prime is plus 3/4. And then the loan origination fee on those capital improvements, the principal balance of those loans cannot exceed 1%. And then there's also a provision in the updated proposed policy of additional city improvements that are needed. Examples that these improvements would be city parks, recreational facilities, city public safety facilities, improvements and expansion of city infrastructure. And that would be subject to increment cash flow. So what that means, when an applicant brings forth an application, once we get a completed application, staff reviews, members of Public Works, Community Development, Finance, and the City Attorney's Office meet to review these to see if there's any more questions or concerns or any information we'd like to see in these applications. At that time, we're also going to look if the city needs something within those TID boundaries or outside the TID boundary, which means the TID boundary would have to be changed, but something that would benefit the city. So the developer would not be responsible for, if something is added, the developer would not be responsible for its additional cost. The developer's portion, the cost of that TID would be paid first, And then once the developer, the applicant's portions are paid in full, then the city would be, receive that TIF funds each year to repay the city portion of that until it's paid in full. There's a clear definition of affordable housing and the length of affordability. So in this updated policy identifies for single-family homes, it's now identified, it's got to meet the first-time home buyers max purchase price, which is set by the state each year. So it will follow that. So currently, for the state of South Dakota, that max purchase price of single-family homes cannot exceed $385,000. That identifies that now in the TIF policy. And then this makes a more clear definition of, for rental properties, the housing projects for a period of 10 years or until the TIF is evolved, whichever is longer, they have to stay affordable for at least 10 years. Notification, so currently, the notification, each person, each resident within the TID boundaries receives a certified letter saying that there's a proposed tax increment district application. And then along the adjacent first-class mailings are out for those are residents that are adjacent to the TID boundaries. This would remove that requirement. Currently, there's 10-day notices, or that 10-day notices that's publication in the paper before the TIF committee, planning commission, and I believe city council. Those won't change. Those will still, with removal of the TIF committee, it would go to planning commission. So that notification would still go out in the paper for the planning commission. And then also, before the publication notice, the city does send out the routings and the notifications to the CEOs of each local government entity, which is the school board and the county and the equalization get notices of a application that's moving forward. So they still will get those notifications, and they can provide the written comments if they want something to be heard by the planning commission and city council. And with that, I will stand for any questions.
Thank you. We'll go to Councilman Bill Evans.
Back to that county fee of $15,000, back several pages.
Yes.
Is that a new fee?
Yes.
Where
They-
does that come from, and how does that show up and be justified, and why, and what do they do for that?
So it was brought up at a TIF committee in November by a county commissioner that sits on the TIF committee board. And it was brought up that there is work that is done on the county side. For example, I give the county information to establish that certified base valuation. So the county works with the state to set that base valuation. So there is work there. There is additional work on the county side for administrating to get to send the city those TIF funds that are collected each year, get sent back to the city and collected, and then those go out to who's ever got the financing for that particular district. This was something they brought forward. There was a resolution passed, I believe, last month, and that $15,000 is different from the city's administration fee in terms of how it's repaid. So the city, we collect within the first 5 years. It comes from that increment that's billed. So usually about year 3, the increment is billed enough, and then once that district is certified, those funds can be released. That's when the city captures its imputed administration fee. The counties, per their resolution, wants their fee within the first 90 days after the TIF is approved by council.
I guess it's answered my question. It's not an insignificant figure.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it seems like if it was zero before and it's 15,000 now, it's just, I don't know if there's going to be a lot of pushback on that particular thing. So just curious. Thank you.
Yep.
Go to Director Fisher.
Thank you. It's actually a really good question, Bill. At that particular TIF committee meeting, the Pennington County Commissioner did bring up a good point. When we approve a TIF, the city has got to monitor that TIF throughout the course of the project. We have to check to make sure that the costs that are coming in are identified and are TIF appropriate. The county does too. That increment that's getting captured and tracked is done so by Director of Equalization. It's a lot of extra work for their team for the disbursement of that additional funds and ensuring that the city's still getting their portion and the school is still getting their portion. It's a lot of paperwork on their end too. So with that, these county commissioners took it back to their leadership group, the county commission, and they have already put this in place. The good news is that both of these administrative fees are TIF appropriate expenditures, so the TIF itself can cover that expense. So with that, we haven't had much pushback from the developers.
Thank you, Vicki.
Mr. Chair, if I might,
Sure,
you
go
know,
ahead.
for us to dissolve the TIF committee is a big step. We want to be sure that the school and the county always have a voice, because when we approve a TIF, it impacts them too. Our difficulty is when we are required to bring these items forward to a TIF committee, sometimes it adds 2-3 months onto the process because we struggle getting quorum. And then when we do take an item to the TIF committee, I don't think that we've had a denial from them on anything for several years. They get heavily vetted at Planning Commission. When we visited with just those that do sit on the committee, they weren't adverse to the committee being dissolved as long as staff routed the applications out to them and they and their teams could review the applications and provide us written comment back, and that anything that they write is then provided to the Planning Commission and the City Council for your consideration when you're making a final decision. The developers are in great support of this because so many times these are time-sensitive applications and we might have 90 days added onto it because we can't get quorum.
Thank you, Vicki. Okay, go to Bill Evans.
Well, some of us know that one of the original hopes of TIFs would be increasing density, certain parts of the city, and infilling and giving a priority to that. Most of our TIFs, frankly, even though they're successful, have not done that, but they've added a little bit to the sprawl. Has there ever been any thought to having a tiered fee structure or something so that if you actually fulfill those original tasks, like you're going to build structures downtown that increase density, it's perhaps a lower rate than the ones that, let's face it, when you start expanding the city footprint, those are that's high maintenance stuff. You know, it's not as cheap as when it's done downtown. Has there ever been any thought to that kind of a fee structure?
No, but
Mr. Chair, if I might, I think what Mike introduced actually does that. In an effort to reduce sprawl to the greatest degree possible, because we all see it. A developer goes out, they want to do a residential development, they try to find the cheapest land possible. It's usually right across the existing city limit line in the county. They buy it, they annex in, now they're a part of the city. Oh, wait, we don't have city sewer and water available. So they come in for a TIF because now that they're in the city limits, they need assistance with getting utilities there. And as a result, we have a lot of sprawl. We've got development along Sheridan Lake Road that if it weren't for TIFs would have never been built. And our maintenance costs for those residential developments, we will never recover in the property tax gain that we get once that development is stood up. So our thought is let's incentivize infill development. And what we are proposing is that if you can see that buying land within the core of the city is X dollars more than what you could have purchased on the perimeter, we can make up that difference, and that difference is then TIF eligible, and we could assist with covering that cost difference. And that might actually help the developer cover recover more of the cost than if we were to stagger a submittal fee rate based on a ranking of if it qualifies as infill versus sprawl. So we're on board with your thinking on this. Our hope is to incentivize developers to such a huge degree that a lot of these vacant properties inside the core of the city that have sat there because it's costly to purchase them and then to get water and sewer to them, that we can help them with that cost more so. So I'm hopeful this will land with a good result.
Well, I have a question, Vicki. So, and maybe it's for Joel or maybe Mr. Dugan, and just for my own edification, is infill defined in this policy, or do we borrow a definition from state statute, or how do we know what are the criteria or the definition of infill?
You know, I think that we can do some research for that. I know that we've got infill language throughout many documents, whether it's in the comprehensive plan, the zoning ordinance, but it might be strategic for us to actually put something in the TIF policy that sets those parameters too, so we know what qualifies and doesn't qualify.
That's what I'm suggesting, but I didn't know if it borrows the state statute, or I don't know. So, yeah,
No,
I guess
I think that's a great point, and I think I will add that definition to make it more clear in the policy.
And one other thing, Mr. Dugan, that I was talking to my finance expert to my left here. I don't know that the Wall Street Journal actually establishes a prime rate. I do think they publish it. Is that correct, Kevin?
I think they publish it.
And so I guess I would like the policy to say, rather than saying the Wall Street Journal prime rate plus 0.75, it says the prime rate as published in the Wall Street Journal, because I don't think that publication actually establishes a prime rate. That's something that the
Right.
Fed does. So,
Yep.
guess that's all questions or comments I had. Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Anybody else?
This wouldn't be for, this is just for acknowledgement
Okay.
on this. So.
Yep. Move to acknowledge by Bieberdorf and a second by Evans. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. Item number 20, presentation by Mike Dugan, TIF planner, and consideration to approve City of Rapid City loan funding for TIF number 87 in the amount of $3,068,000. Mr. Dugan, go ahead.
Thank you. So this would be, the city is proposing to finance the TIF portion of tax increment district number 87, which is called the youth soccer field infrastructure. I just wanted to briefly describe the background in the original approval of this project before I get into the specifics of the financing. So this is TID 87, youth soccer infrastructure. This is the TID boundaries and where this district is located. So the original approval was November of 2022. The purpose was to extend sewer mains north of Seeger Drive to the Dakota Soccer Field Complex and west of North Elkville Road. The reason, the rationale behind that was connecting the soccer field to eliminate the need to pump holding tanks, reduce oversized costs payable out of city funds, install sanitary sewer, anticipation of additional development in the area. This loan would be, this district is set up in two phases as far as the construction. So this would be to finance phase 1 and phase 2 of the costs. So the total project cost, this includes financing and contingency, is a little over $6.2 million, broke up into two phases. So there will be two certifications with this request. The city financing, the loan amount will be $3,068,000, interest rate of 7% fixed. There will be a personal guarantee from the developer and an assignment of those TIF 87 tax proceeds. The estimated repayment of this TID is 2041, which would make for a 19-year amortization. And the estimated, the city received an estimated $2,026,000 in interest over the life of the loan. The estimated increment income, so the chart there is the applicant, the developer's estimate of what the value will be of the property as it sits right now, and what that increment will be each year as far as the repayment to this loan. So the total, those add up, estimated increment of a little over 6.7 million. The principal and interest payments estimated just under 5.1 million. So there's a little bit of room there with the estimated income coming in. So, and just for reference, the 2024 equalized value of this district, of the property within the boundaries, is 23.7 million. As you can see on the original applicants, the developer's estimate, it's already exceeding what the estimate was as far as that. That's how the property sits right now. So this one is overperforming a little bit than estimated. So that may equate to a quicker repayment period. This is the draw schedule. As I stated previously, it'll be certified in 2 phases. The city will collect the draws, the invoices, and the lien waivers for each draw. We will track the process. We will monitor this. Anything that's expended in there will have to be documented. This is the estimated draw period per each phase. So this is estimated construction completion date of October of 2026. And that's the draw amount is estimated, which will be drawn periodically throughout that up until 2026. So the existing city financing, there are 2 projects that the city is financing currently. One is the Camden Heights project, the low-income apartments. That one was closed last month for a little over $7.2 million. Then also recently approved was the Homestead Street approved district, and that was for the city to purchase land for a future park and a future fire station along Homestead. So the city is financing that as well. So this would be the 3rd one currently the city is financing. With that, I will stand for any questions.
Any questions from the committee? We'll go to Kevin Maher.
My question is about the city. You said the city is going to receive over $2 million in interest. So the city is the bank financing this. How do you make the decision whether the city's going to finance the TIF, or we do it the old way where we put it out to banks?
Yeah, there's a few different criteria. One is the cash flow of the city. Or do we have the capacity to finance a project like this? And then we don't have the capacity to finance every one of these projects. For example, the industrial center, the Black Hills Industrial Center, $70 million TIF loan. There's no way the city could not. That would have to be done by an outside financial institution. So when we're getting up to loan amounts like that, it's just not possible for the city. So it's just looking at what funds we have, and these funds are taken from, as currently the city has investments, and we're limited on what the city can invest in as far as the risk. As those investments become available as they mature, they could have a 3-month maturity, they could have a 3-year maturity. As those mature, they're not reinvested and can be used towards financing these TIDs.
Okay, thank you. So then you set the interest rate, kind of the market rate on this one, like 7%. So
Currently, typically they're going to be a little bit lower than what a bank can finance them at. With prime currently at 7.5, that's typically where we're seeing the banks come in at, as the 7.5. So it's a win for the developer. It's a win for the city because we'll get typically a higher interest rate than we can on other investments. And then it's also a win because these get back on the tax roll quicker with that lower interest rate.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Go to Pat Roseland.
My light is actually on, Mr. Chair.
Okay, well, I guess we'll go to community development then.
So, I
Okay.
think it was about a
Come
year
back.
ago, there were members of council that really threw out a challenge how can we use our city money better, invest it more wisely so that we're getting a higher return? We can't just rely on sales tax dollars for our revenue source. And so taking that conversation to heart and seeing some of these smaller dollar TIFs come in, there are so many of them that have come in about 5 million, where half of that is getting paid to a bank for interest. Well, if we can be the bank, that's some of the highest return on investment that we can recover for the city. So we brought the idea to you some time back. You see that 2 TIFs have already been approved, with the city being the funding source. This would be the 3rd one. And our goal is that we become less reliant on our sales tax and we use these dollars wisely. Mike did a great job with our limitations. We have limited funds for those larger TIFs, but on these smaller ones, it benefits us. And for us to entice the developers to go with the city, we need to come in slightly under what banks could finance them for.
Thank you. Go to Pat Roseland. You're good.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Dugan, I just got a question. What's the availability of homeowners or property owners along that route to hook into that system? I'm sure that's going to be, there's very little sewer mains in that area from the city, obviously none. Is there availability of the homeowners along that route to connect to that?
That I wouldn't be able to answer. Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the things with the TIF and why we appreciate your support of it is that development has occurred in this area whereby a specific developer was granted an exception not to make some improvements. And so with this TIF, we'll get those improvements in place and it won't fall back on the city as a part of that. If there is someone with existing services, and especially with the sewer, and they're within 400 feet, it would be at their expense to connect with those facilities, but they would have that option. They are not required to connect to water. Anyone can have a private water system.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I have one question now. Is this, looking at this aerial, is this North Elkvale Road, is that the one that goes up to the soccer fields? Is there anything about fixing that road that's going to be included in this TIF, or where are we at with, I mean, are you going to redo the sewer? You're going to have to tear up the road? How's this going to work, I guess?
That's a great question, Mr. Chair. Right now, Ellsworth has put us on notice that Elkville Road will be the haul route that they primarily use for some rather large construction projects as a part of base expenditures. With that, they've reached out to Metropolitan Planning Organization, which includes Box Elder, Rapid City, Pennington County, Piedmont, Somerset, etc. And they have said, with consideration of this, there may be some funding available once we've completed our projects to assist, because Elkville Road, in part, is under the authority of the city, Pennington County, and Box Elder. And so if we could get funding from the federal government for reconstruction, that would be a great benefit. And in the meantime, it serves them well for the expenditures that they're proposing at Ellsworth. So it's really a partnership. And we're hopeful that in the near future, we will see some street improvements and save city tax dollars in the meantime for those improvements.
Okay, but will it go hand in hand with the sewer expansion, or, I mean, does it not necessarily have to?
No, the sewer will be separate from that. So we don't have to design our sewer where it's going down the middle of the pavement section. It can be to the side of the right-of-way. So that street improvement will be separate from that sewer improvement.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? So you looking for a motion to acknowledge then?
This would be to approve.
To approve. Motion to approve by Evans and a second by Roseland. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Motion by Bieberdorf, second by Maher to adjourn. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned.